Hey guys, I'm Chef Tony from Tony Caters. I'm so excited that you are taking part in our Flatbread Feast. It's a really fun activity that really gets a chance to bring people together virtually in this new era that we're in. So I hope you're going to have a lot of fun with it. I feel really confident that you will. So first things first, you guys all should have received the kit and your instructions to lay out all of your ingredients, set your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to walk you through some technique and some ideas to kind of take next level this experience, I guess I would say. You may or may not be doing this as a competition. It's a really fun interactive activity either way. But if you are doing this as a competition, I have some ideas just to kind of help you seal the deal and win. So first things first, we cannot stop you from using anything in your pantry, anything extra, secret ingredient of your own. The kits are all kind of seeded with some secret ingredients, so not all of your coworkers receive the same ones, but nothing is stopping you from next leveling this with things in your house. So bear that in mind. Second thing, this does not have to be a pizza. This is a flatbread feast. And we're providing you kind of basic ingredients that lend themselves to making a pizza, of course, but think about some different ideas. You could do kind of a chips and dip concept, which would be really fun. You might bake the flatbread and cut it up into wedges. You might grill it or griddle it on your stovetop and cut it up into wedges, make some kind of neat dip or spread and serve it that way, which is kind of cool. You might go crazy and do a calzone. Sky's the limit, right? So bear that in mind. When it comes to the judging, or if you're not doing it as a competition and you just want to wow your colleagues, think about not just using the basic ingredients in an expected way. Think about next leveling, maybe with an infused oil, maybe taking these ingredients and combining them into a relish, a tapenade. You might sort of grab some ingredient and make it a hummus kind of concept. Up to you, but just sort of don't present us the ingredients as you receive them. Think about sort of taking them up to the next level. Also, when it comes to that judging or presentation, you might want to think about ways to incorporate things that are specific to your team, either something about your technologies within your company or something that's just sort of funny and unique about you guys. You might want to think about including that when it's time to present to your colleagues. So bear that in mind as well. I'm going to walk you through a couple basic technique concepts. The first is slicing an onion. So you guys certainly may know how to do this. You might have better knife skills than me even, I don't know. But I'm going to give those of you who don't know some of the basic tips and tricks for using some of these ingredients. So the onion that was provided in this kit doesn't actually have that connected stem end. So in this case, it's a little bit difficult to dice, but I'm still going to show you the basic idea for dicing. There are a couple pieces of it. The first is that we're going to go kind of horizontally. We're going to chop, chop, chop. Then we're going to go the other direction. We're going to chop, chop, chop. And then we're going to finally slice, slice, slice. And you'll see that we get a little dice as we go. So I'm going to go horizontally. I'm keeping my hand nice and flat. I'm kind of just sliding my way through the onion. I'm going to go, in this case, I'm going to go 3 times. And I'll show you what I've done. So I've made these horizontal cuts. You can see those. Then I'm going to go in sort of quick slices right through the top. Down, 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 down. Again, I don't have the root end on this one, so it's kind of more prone to sliding around, but I'm just showing you the basic idea. So now I went cross, 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 and then it's really straightforward. Now when I just sort of slice across the onion in a standard way, keeping my fingers out of the way and kind of rocking my way through, you'll see that I'm getting these nice dice. Certainly you could go kind of for the raw red onion thing on top of the flatbread. You can caramelize them. You can use them as part of a tapenade. Sky's the limit. If I hadn't done that, so I'm going to take this back to kind of an intact piece of onion. You see it doesn't have the stem end, or the root end or the stem end. You could actually just go across thinly, thinking about the layers of the onion. You could just sort of rock your way across, and then I'm going to get sort of a short julienne, or sort of as I break these up, I'm getting the little strips. These little strips of onion. Definitely lend themselves to caramelization, or when you think about red onion on a pizza, sometimes you have long pieces like this. So that's one piece of it. Slide these off to the side. And now I'm going to address the garlic. So I'm basically going to, keeping my fingers out of the way, I'm going to just slice, kind of rock my way through. So I have little slices of garlic, just to kind of make it smaller. Let me get that root end out of here. And then now I'm going to keep the tip of the knife planted right on the board, so that's not a cutting hazard. I'm going to keep this hand nice and flat on the tip, and I'm basically just going to rock through this garlic and make it smaller. I'm going to mince this garlic. Then I'm going to take my 2 fingers. You see there's garlic kind of stuck to the knife here. 2 fingers, and I'm going to slide that garlic off so the knife is clean. I'm going to mound it up again. Again, keeping the tip of the knife always on the board. I'm just going to rock back and forth through this garlic, making it smaller and smaller and smaller. Bear in mind, the pieces of garlic like this, as small as you may get them, still could be pretty overwhelming straight on the pizza, so this would be a good piece to put in a tapenade. If you're making an extra sauce of some sort, you could use this garlic. You might infuse oil with this garlic, in which case my recommendation would be to take a whole clove, infuse it briefly in the oil. I actually like to get the oil sizzling with whatever I'm using to infuse, herbs or garlic, whatever, and then turn it off. And actually, just as I'm doing other things around the kitchen, getting ready for the next phase, I have the oil off, and it's just sort of slowly infusing the oil. And then in that case, I would discard this garlic, and you'd have the infused oil. Though certainly this garlic eventually will get nice and soft from that oil, and you could actually mash that up as a paste if you really wanted to kind of hammer garlic flavor on your flatbread. So something to think about if you don't want to just mince. So in this case, I am mincing. And then that's going to be ready for me, and I'm just going to set this off to the side for now. So, of course, rolling the flatbread. This may not be something you guys have a lot of experience with. I'm going to give you some basic ideas for rolling out this flatbread. And again, certainly it would be, what I'm going to show you ultimately is rolling out the flatbread, topping it for baking in kind of an expected way. But again, you might roll this out before you grill it or griddle it, or you might even just bake it plain in the oven and then take it to the next level somehow. I'm going to show you a more traditional pizza kind of concept. All right, first things first, lots of flour. You want to make sure that the dough is not sticking to your board. So a heavy amount of flour. I can certainly use gluten-free flour. Well, gluten-free flour wouldn't matter, I guess, because we give you a gluten-full dough. But certainly, if you were doing a gluten-free pizza dough, you could use a gluten-free flour. I'm actually going to show you a trick later with cornmeal, which is really handy to ensure that your pizza doesn't stick anywhere. So first thing I like to do is actually press both sides into the flour so it's nice and floured. In that case, you might even want to put a little bit more afterward. I'm going to use a rolling pin, obviously. Wine bottles work really well. A wine bottle or a vinegar bottle, oil bottle. You might want to wrap it in plastic if you are going to use that because you don't have a rolling pin. Yeah, the main idea is that you really want to push out. You don't want to sort of go all the way sort of back and forth. I'm going to go from the center of the dough. Show you this. I'm going to go from the center of the dough and work my way out. And then I'm actually going to come from the center of the dough and work my way to the edge. I'm not going to sort of roll through the whole length of the dough. And then what I really recommend you do is you keep it moving, flipping and turning constantly. You don't want to sort of realize that you rolled all the board flour into it and then there's none left and then it's going to start to stick. You really want to keep it moving. And if it gets too, if you notice it starts to stick, just go back for some more flour. All right, so I'm just going to roll out. I'm making my way out. One thing that I'll tell you, I got some onions stuck in there. One thing that I'll tell you is if this really starts to give you some resistance, you're rolling and it's springing right back on itself, let it sit for about 10 or 15 minutes even while you do some other things in the kitchen. Prep your ingredients. It'll calm down. That gluten will actually relax in the dough and you'll actually have another chance to roll it out. And you'll notice if you do that, if you really do have to do that, you'll notice that in the long run, you will get a nice sort of bigger size flatbread that you were hoping for. So again, I'm just gonna roll, roll, roll. I'm not gonna roll the whole length. I'm going from the center out. And I think that's enough for right now, because I really just want to show you the concept. So here's what I'm recommending you do. I have another cutting board that I've covered with a bit of cornmeal, which are gonna act basically like rollers so that no matter what, your flatbread is not going to stick when you're transferring this. You can either basically build it and transfer it onto a cookie sheet. In this case, I love my sort of short wall cast iron griddle. You can transfer it to something like this, which is cold right now, and put that straight in that 400-degree oven. Alternatively, if you have a baking stone in your oven, or if you just want to preheat this in your oven, you could have that in there. This is a little bit more advanced, but you could actually have that hot surface that you're going to cook the flatbread on in there, and then take it from your cutting board, slide it right off onto that hot stone. That'll ensure a little bit more kind of deeper color on the bottom because you're going straight onto a hot surface instead of a cool surface that then once you get it into the oven, it needs to start heating up. Either way is fine. No shame in whichever way you're most comfortable doing it. Okay, so I'm going to take the flatbread that I rolled out. You could even sort of insurance policy if you want to go like this a little bit. If you're a pizzaiola in disguise, you can sort of go big, but you can definitely kind of without pointy fingers, for sure no pointy fingers, that's going to show right through. But if you want to just sort of keep your knuckles rounded, you can definitely kind of stretch a little bit if you want to do this. That might wow your colleagues on the call as well. So I'm going to stretch this out just a little bit more. That actually gave me pretty considerably bigger size. I'm going to lay this out right on top of those little rollers, on those little cornmeal rollers. And then I'm just going to go crazy. We've provided a really fun variety of toppings. If you want to go the traditional sort of pizza style, again, chips and dip is fun. Calzone style is fun. You guys are creative. So I'm just going to sauce this guy up. What I usually like to do, even if I go for some base cheese, or maybe I'm going to do some base blue cheese, and then all of my ingredients, I usually like to do a little more mozzarella right on the top, because it's kind of an insurance policy that everything is going to stay nice and connected. It kind of will drape over and melt over all those ingredients, and it's not going to go kind of flying off as you're transferring into the oven or as you're bringing it out and cutting it. So that's something that's pretty cool. For me, I'm going to do some cherry peppers. Again, I'm just showing you a pretty traditional pizza style flatbread. Lots of fun things to do as you see fit. I'll do some chicken, just sort of showing you that you shouldn't be afraid to go big. Well, that'll be enough for now. And then, like I said, a little insurance policy right at the end. I'm gonna just sort of drape another layer of mozzarella that's gonna ensure everything stays nice and stuck. This would be a great time if I had made an infused oil or some other relish. You know, certainly the tapenade or something would have gone on the bottom, but an infused oil you might drizzle over this. Alternatively, you might think about some ingredients that you don't put on until the end. So you might actually take a pizza as far as this, and then when it comes out of the oven, you might look at finishing it with that drizzle of infused oil. Certainly if you want to bring in some herbs or whatever, no stopping you, whatever from your own pantry or your own garden, you might finish it with herbs at the end. The basil and that sort of thing is just going to burn if you put it in the oven the whole time. All right, and so lastly, I'm just going to show you the cornmeal really acts like little rollers. You don't have to worry at all about it sticking. I would transfer this again, whether this was screaming hot and I had opened the oven door, or whether I'm doing it room temp like this, and then taking it straight in the oven. So then you transfer that in the oven. We're recommending oven times vary, all the conditions vary. We're recommending 8 minutes in the oven for a nice kind of set pizza. And then if it looks like you need it, you might want to turn your broiler on for a couple of minutes just to really kind of set the top. That's pretty cool. I have one I started earlier. This has actually been more about 12 minutes or so. I started this before I pressed record. Good color on the bottom. This one doesn't look like it needs a broil. I also recommend, you may want to let this sit out for as many as 10 minutes to really just sort of come together and calm down a little bit before you slice into it. You know, sometimes you slice into it straight out of the oven and everything's shooting every direction. You might want to let it rest for just a little bit. That's pretty much it. It's pizza. You guys know what to do. Thanks so much for sticking with me. Have a lot of fun. Make it your own. Extra points, I'm sure, with your secret panel of judges. Extra points, I'm sure, for creativity. Don't just give me Kalamata olives. Give me a tapenade with some roasted garlic and chili. Whatever. You know what I'm saying. So have a lot of fun. Thanks so much. Take care. Chef Tony from Tony Caters.